My name's Chris.
And I'm Kristie.
This is the Washing Up Podcast. And we're back and we're talking to Canada again.
I know. This is amazing.
This is a major moment.
Oh, thank you, internets.
Thank you, internets. Thank you, all the mega poodles and all those sorts of things. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Jude.
Thank you very much.
We'll just give you a moment because obviously Australia is applauding right now.
Yeah, just painting and more like a Beatles reception, really. Just
this is
screaming.
We should have also
painting.
said the Virgie winning. Jude.
Oh yes,
she has of course won one of our prestigious Virgie awards.
Yes. I hope it arrived in the mail well.
Yeah.
Yes, it did.
It's on the mantle. I still don't have.
If we only had video, you could see it there.
Shame we don't.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't have one.
This is an audio medium.
I've still never won one. So anyway, it's not like I'm in
One
charge.
day, love.
I'm in charge of the awards, and I still can't win one of my own awards. So it is absolutely a beyond a delight to get to have this chat with you, Jude. It's something we've been really looking forward to since the first time we watched the first series.
Yes.
So this is genuinely something. And again, what we've seen since the series has started in Australia is that you're quite a popular lady.
Well, it's such a hoot that it's playing down there. When we heard that, like all the bakers, because we still talk to each other all the time, right? Like through WhatsApp and stuff. Yeah. And it was such a hoot because we all got such a kick out of you guys when we were first broadcasting up here doing your podcast. And then we'd listen to it and we'd say, did you hear? Hey, they mentioned you. Oh, yeah, they mentioned me. And it was like a big kick.
You too can be F-list celebrities. Well, I think you're at least a C.
You're above us.
You're way above us.
But what was interesting about it, obviously, was when we did that first lot of broadcasting, first of all, we broadcasted your series a year after you'd done it. Mm-hmm. Secondly, you didn't find it till then. And secondly, it wasn't on in Australia.
No.
So the Australian audience that's come along for this ride, and boy, haven't they come along for this ride, was finding the show themselves because it wasn't to air here. So we were broadcasting something that they couldn't see. But you guys...
You were just toying with them. You were.
But, our persistence paid off, and now you're being streamed here in Australia, and we're very delighted about it. So should we ask how it all began? How did you come to the Bake Off Pavilion in the first place? I mean, it was an untried show in Canada, so yes.
Yeah, it was, well, it's funny because my mom had said to me one day, like way back years ago, she'd said, oh, you've got to watch this wonderful British show. It's about baking. And I thought, oh, God, well, not me. But then I said, oh, to be nice to my mom, I would watch it. And of course I was hooked right away. and I forget which series it was, but I've watched them all now, and the junior bakes and all that kind of stuff. And then when I saw the notice go by, I think it was on Facebook, saying, do you want to be a baker on Canada's? And I thought, well, for a lark, why not? Because it said send in a video promo of yourself. So, animator that I am and stuff and all that, I said, okay, Gord, I'm going to do a little minute thing in the kitchen. And I wandered around the kitchen making a Saskatoon berry pie, believe it or not.
We'll talk about that.
And I think that went over really well. Plus the fact that, then I had the gnomes, and they just loved the gnomes because they were, whimsical. And so that's kind of how it all happened.
I also love the gnomes myself.
Yeah, we'll talk about the gnomes in a minute. The gnomes are going to come up because they're quite popular. But I love the idea of, I was going to film a minute here because having watched you on the show, obviously, I can just imagine what it was like for them when they got the tape and they're just sitting there going, oh, I'll put this one in. They're like, we have to have this person on the show.
Yeah.
It's amazing because well, you are a delight to just watch in there, like regardless of like anything else, just to watch you in there baking and watch the way you work
and interact with everyone else.
And the way you interact, it's something that I'm assuming is just you and just how you are.
I'm really, really comfortable around cameras, which is nice. That helps because, in the tent, there's like, what were there, 9 of them, plus one that nearly took my head off one time because I turned too quickly. And the one that's flying around in the air just about decapitated me, which would have been really messy, right?
Yeah,
but,
it would have been like James's bed.
Yeah.
Love you,
my
James.
Lord. James. But it was also sure I'm comfortable on the camera, but it's still pretty high stress and all that in there. But because everybody was it sounds so corny, doesn't it, when you say that if y'all were having a good time and we're all helping each other out, which isn't always the case media, right? Sometimes it's us and them kind of thing. But it was like everybody was in on it together, so you couldn't help but have a good time. People would think of something and they'd say, hey, and they'd wave one of the camera guys over and say, hey, look at this, look what I can do, blah, 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 and they'd do it. And sometimes they used it, sometimes they didn't. But you had a real team feeling of, well, that was fun.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So,
Yeah.
And then
one thing I did. Oh, sorry, you get me talking, right? And you can't stop me.
No, we love that.
Yeah. People want to hear you.
I was going to say one thing I did that I had actually thought about, that I'd learned way back when I was a kid. And I thought, it's my moment now. And one time I was fiddling around and one of the camera guys was over there and said, hey, come on over here. I said, how would you like to hear a tongue twister? And he said, oh, here's what he sets up. And I said, okay, ready? Here we go. Betty bitten, bought some butter, bought some cheese, my butter's bitter. If I put this in my batter, it will make my batter bitter. So she bought some better butter, bought the better butter, put the better butter in the bitter batter and made the bitter batter better. And I was just so proud of myself, right? And the guy said, oh, it's great. Can you do it again? And when I did it the second time, I put in too much butter into the recipe, right? Because I'm busy performing for the camera. And then it was like, oh, crap, I got to save my recipe. So you got to pay attention to what you're doing in a tent.
Jude is answering the question, of course, to the Betty bought some better butter, was the better butter bitter? Betty says no, we said yes. Betty is indeed hoisted by her own butter. So, and that's the problem.
I like that better.
Was the better butter bitter? It's too much butter. So, but that's the thing, is that I think, especially in these sorts of shows, it's important that you see all these different personalities. And I think one of the things that your series had that made it so strong, especially for, again, a first series of this sort of show in Canada, I think the thing that worked so well was you had such an array of different personalities, and all of them unique and strong. And I think that was...
And lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the cast, Meredith and the others in the casting group, they really did a good job of picking people who were different, but we just gelled. It was amazing that first night we sat down at the table together. Actually, Sabrina came in the next day, but she just fit right in too. And we all sat around, and I ran around with my little camera, just getting ready to introduce themselves. And everybody just fell right into it. It was like we all trusted each other right away. And which is odd when you think about all the various characters that we had there.
Yeah.
But they had picked good people to fit together. Absolutely. And we genuinely mourned whenever somebody went off. We all really mourned that person.
Oh, we're still mourning Pierre.
Justice
for Pierre.
When we knew that was coming up, obviously when they were going to show episode 1, we were like, oh, this is exciting, this is great. And then there was an immediate moment of, oh no, we're going to see Pierre's cake fall apart.
Yeah.
I've never felt bad for anything in my life. It's just it was the way that he just looked at the camera and went, it fell apart.
What are you going to do?
No. Were you at least treated to a song? Because we weren't.
Yes. Well, yes, it did happen. It was lucky because he was voted off and we were all really sad. And what he did was he sent us a video later that he'd recorded of himself playing. He has trouble playing now. I guess he has a bit of arthritis and stuff. But at the time, it was beautiful, classical, just lovely, lovely guitar. And we all thought, darn, wouldn't it have been wonderful if Dan would have run in there with the guitar and he could have just played a little bit? It would have been lovely.
Well, that was the thing. In episode 1, he goes, next week I'll give you a bit of guitar. And I'm like, no!
Yeah.
Don't get it next week. Next week.
Oh, I know.
So
it was such a drag, but.
So okay, we have to go to the gnomes. We have to start with the gnomes. So
okay.
These obviously creatures that inhabit your garden and invaded the pavilion when you went there.
Oh yes.
How
they followed me along.
So how long have you been working with the gnomes? And tell us all about their little lives.
Well, I was an educational animator, and whenever the best job I ever had, the first job I got was actually 100 years ago, on a kids show doing claymation. And I was such a dumb kid, I thought, oh, I'll do this for the rest of my life, not realizing that was the only time that I would be able to do it full time. But I loved molding little characters and, bringing them. It's the ultimate God trip, right? I mean, you mold something out of clay and then you make it come to life.
Yeah.
And when I realized you could do that with chocolate, well, who doesn't want to watch a little dancing chocolate gnome or something, oh no, we'll talk about that. It's so much fun, and it makes people so happy. You get a cake or whatever, and you've got these little characters on it, and everybody goes, "Woo!" I made a tennis one for my mom with, with a sort of warped Serena playing. I forget, was it Nadal? Somebody, anyways, they kind of shrunk and melted a bit, but she knew who they were supposed to be, and she loved it, right? So
that's amazing.
That's one of the benefits of this. When we talked to Bruno, he talked about the idea of that level of joy in baking.
Yes.
And it's something that, as he said that it's something that baking has that like cooking doesn't have as much of. There's a whimsy and joy in the bake.
Yes.
And in the craft of putting together the bake and the way you present it. And there's a level of love and care, and as he also said, sharing. And I think that's one of the big secrets to this show. And I think it's also one of the reasons why your bakes sort of resonated with a lot of people. It's that care and love, and also that sharing and openness. And I think the gnomes were a perfect embodiment of that. And
keep going back to the gnomes.
One of my favorite moments in that first episode is the moment where you demonstrate the lazy gnome, where you just sort of lean back and put your hand behind your head and go, the lazy gnome, because he's lazy. And it's one of my favorite parts of any series. It's just you doing the lazy gnome.
I am happy to have made you happy.
Thank you. So with the other...
Well, that's actually a big part.
Yeah, no,
sorry.
No, you talk.
It's a big part of animating is that you're like an avatar for your little characters. I don't know if that's the right way to put it or not, but you're always acting it out. Like even now we're sitting here and I'm waving my arms around, and you're acting things out, and then you make it happen for the little guy. And so it was just a natural to demonstrate the gnome positions. Like you couldn't see what the gnome was doing, right? No, but I want to show you too. So yeah,
that's cool.
So when you went in, was there anything when you went in there that you were thinking, well, this is sort of the thing I'm going to excel at more than others? Was there one sort of bake that you went in going, this is definitely the one that I would really like to excel at, or is probably going to be my strength?
Are you talking about the first episode or second episode?
In general in the series. Was there one when you went into the whole series where you were like, well, if they get to this challenge or something to do with this,
I see what you're saying.
That's where I'm going to be strong.
Right, because we're all practicing all of our things. Well, I was always worried about the donuts, but I was really looking forward. The one that I worked on a lot was my English tea thing, where you have the three little guys. But all the baking was like, actually when the Battenberg happened, I went, yes. I think there was James and myself who knew what a Battenberg were. It was like the others didn't have a clue. And so I felt really, it might have been kind of petty, but I felt good. Oh boy, I know something. It'll help me.
Well, that was the funny part about it, was like when we watched everyone looking at it going, how do these cubes fit together? And it was like when Terry did the several layers and then went, oh, if I cut them in half and twist them, that might work. It was watching everyone work it out. And like Bruno said to us in his conversation that he had the other day, that he had to go and, like you said, French chefs don't make Battenbergs.
So sure. I just figured that people have, you're going to be on the Great Canadian Baking Show, Bake Off. You've watched all the British ones, and the British ones make Battenbergs quite often. And so that's where I had seen it. And I thought, woohoo, I know what I should tell you.
Yes.
The bagels, which I was very proud that I came number 2 in the technical of the bagels, which was shock to everybody, I think. And the night before, I had been sitting there thinking, I wonder what a Canadian what they'll do for the technical, on the Canadian baking show. So I bet they'll do for bread, they'll do bagels. So I went on and I watched a YouTube video on specifically Montreal bagels because
well done. That is
and when
well done.
I know. I couldn't believe it when they announced it. It was like, Yahoo!
We've spoken to bakers before from all the different series who have talked about, they've sat there and they've tried to piece it together, and they've gone through Instagram and YouTube going, what sort of things can I find? But that is absolutely brilliant. Yes. I can just imagine that moment where they're like, so we're doing for the technical, it is going to be Montreal bagels. And like, in the back of going, yeah!
Oh, the great baking gods were smiling on me that night.
Indeed, you must have made the correct sacrifices. Now,
I did.
With the Battenberg cake, I just wanted to touch on one thing. The jam, it didn't make it into the cake. Did you actually take it home as a condiment? Is that what happened to the jam?
I heard that.
Yeah.
Maple syrup tastes pretty good in the morning too. So
yeah.
Well, I every time I watch the show, because of course, being the shy, retiring type that I am, I watch my show all the time. And every time I'm yelling at the TV, more jam. Not as much as Corey, but more jam, more jam.
It's kind of like somewhere in between what you put on and what Corey did.
You have Jude's where it's like, where is it? And you have Corey's, which is, we need to see a doctor. It's in between.
There's a jam slide.
But just to clear up for people, because obviously in the cupcakes, you did have maple cupcakes which were missing maple. That happened. That was a thing. But in Battenberg, there was jam in there?
There really was, just a kind of thin skim of it. There should have been more, but there was some jam in there. I didn't forget it. I just blew it.
There we go. You heard it here first, folks.
There you go. She didn't forget it. She just blew it. Difference.
Yeah.
There's a difference. So what is it like, though, when you walk into that sort of environment and you've got all of these bakers with these different levels of skills, different backgrounds in baking and different flavors that they're sort of used to? It must be amazing to sort of get together with everyone in that sort of environment.
Oh,
bake.
Oh, it is. It is. And I mean, while we're taping the show, it's just, you're not supposed to talk to each other during the technical, but we kind of do sometimes. And, but when everybody's doing their own specific recipes, it's great because you're yakking back and forth and, you see some of it on camera, of course, like, James cracking a beer and Corey with his whisk. But there's all sorts of other stuff that goes on, like, stealing people's fruit because it tastes so good because it's so fresh, or you're just talking about, all of Vandana, your favorite bakers, all of her flavor. Like, she had such cool flavors on things, and she was giving it out all over the place. Dan didn't leave. Dan hung around her desk and Linda's the most, I think, to just keep picking up treats. Although he did eat a lot of my chocolate bicycles. I had to say finally, Dan, stop eating chocolate bicycles.
Yeah, we'll talk. Let's quickly talk about Dan and his ability to snaffle food. So we did point out in the original run of the podcast. So again, for those listening along with the rewatch, we're referencing some things that have happened, obviously, in our first version of the pod. But in that first series, we did reference that about halfway through, Linda got clever and just started almost baking exclusively something for Dan to take. It's like we always equate it to Homer Simpson and where Marge makes a cake for Homer to ruin. Bit like that. So Dan was very good. Probably the best I've ever seen in any version. Of like just nicking food. Did you realize that he was just sort of dwelling over the shoulder?
At first, I think we thought he was just, being a really good, not MC, but host, and just was in it. And then we realized, wait a minute, he's really eating this stuff. Hey, get away from me. I need that for my cake. But then, like you say, Linda was really smart. And she was making it, this one's for you.
It's the great
gobble it up there.
It's the grandkid angle of here you go.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Oh yeah. Oh, he was such a hoot. He and Julia, lovely, lovely, lovely woman. The two of them were just great to have because, you know, even if you're feeling good about things going on, tension, and they'd come over and it would just sort of calm you down and relax and remind you that you're having fun. You're having fun. You're supposed to be having fun.
Yeah.
And they did it in such a nice way. You know, it's just, nice, the whole show.
Oh, that's yes.
And I want to say, you talking about referencing things that you said in the other original podcast and stuff. You gave me the best compliment ever in my life. You said that I was the most Canadian person you'd ever seen.
Yes.
Because I bled maple syrup and I cracked hockey pucks.
Yes, I actually listened back because I haven't listened back to that original series in a very long time. And I put that on after we did the first episode of the rewatch. I put that on and I was in the other room and Kristie just heard cackling. And she goes, "What were you cackling at?" I went, "You just said that Jude bleeds maple syrup and poops hockey pucks." And I love that line.
And
it's
I
true.
presume your form of transport is a caribou. It's just...
Well, it was perfect because I've always been very proud to be Canadian. My dad was in the RCMP. I actually spent a summer as a lady lumberjack when I was 17. So I figure I earned the title.
Let's go back to that for a minute.
How did you have to wear a plaid shirt? Like, how do you become a lumberjack?
Well, actually, because I'm so old, the reason that I was a lady lumberjack was that they had the one nursery had been told, you've got to hire some girls. Can't be just guys. You got to hire girls now. And so there was about 4 of us who were, pretty bruisers. I was the only one who knew how to back up a trailer, right? Because of boat trailers and stuff. And they hired us on, but then they wouldn't let us do anything. So they said, you go up and swim at the reservoir or something. Don't bother us. And the guys who were working there would get stuck with their trailer. So I would come down and back the trailer out for them. And they'd get all mad. Hey,
okay, guys, I didn't actually anyone. I just rescued you. It's all good.
I will protect your masculinity. It's fine. It's safe with me. I'm just going to go back into the reservoir to do my life.
Yeah. Didn't get to cut down any trees, but I did wear plaid.
There you go. Well, that's more Canadian. That's better. That's just the picture is just completed.
Yes,
absolutely perfect. So
look, if you tell us that you then went on to get a job as a Mountie, I would not be surprised. Just
that would make sense. So obviously, we talked about the odor of those different flavors and things, and we've heard from different people obviously about eating everybody else's food as well. Were there any benches in particular that you made a beeline to first?
Well, Corey with bread. I mean, just, oh my God, best bread. The bakers all got in trouble just because we kept sneaking over to his bench and eating it before they got all the shots. And, they want to get the beauty shots and stuff. And we were tearing off chunks and eating it because it was so dang. And the floor director guy was yelling, "Hey, you guys, you're cut.
We haven't filmed
it." No, wipe that cinnamon off your face, So but actually everybody's was good. Like, I mean, even Pierre's poor cake that just fell apart. I ate some of it and I thought it tasted great, right?
They said in the judging, the flavor was really good. It's just a bit of an incident.
Well, I mean, it's so friggin' hot in that tent.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got air conditioning, but it's so hot that anything with chocolate melts. So we were all a little worried about the chocolate stuff, right? It's like, oh, it's gonna melt. And sure enough, it did. And it was just a matter of who's melted the most.
Yeah.
And it was which one of you had like a moose center which couldn't run, and it's like poor Pierre.
Oh yeah.
Like, he had a moose center. Yeah. Everyone else at least had a cake bond.
It was so sad.
We all know there's a long record in Bake Off of Gioconde and failure. So we all know.
Yeah.
There's a long track record for Gioconde in Bake Off.
Yeah.
Don't go there. Don't go there. There's certain things you just know. Don't do it. You're yelling at the TV, but they do it anyways.
So of all of the things that you had to attempt, was there anything there that you sort of had never sort of seen before and were like, I got no idea. What are we doing here?
The fondant fancies, shall we? That's not what we called them behind the
I can imagine. I can imagine.
Other words would come into that.
There was another F involved with that, yeah. But those ones I had, I'd seen it on, I think I saw Anna Olson, who's a wonderful baker here, who's got a show. And I think I'd seen her do it, but I'd never made them or anything. And of course, Linda had. She said, "Oh yeah, I made these a long time ago at a wedding, for a wedding." But that one was a real oh my God, what do we do? And I just tried to remember what had happened on the show. But yeah, we hated that one. I think we all hated that one.
There's always interesting.
Effing fancy.
Every series has one. I mean, there's always one of those. There's one in one of the Australian series where they had jam drop biscuits, which seemed straightforward. And it turned out that everyone just went, these are hard. No, they weren't expected. Yeah. Obviously, my perpetual favourite from any season of Canadian, the creme and caramel from last season of Canadian, which was just soup. Which is my favourite Bruno reaction of all time when he walked back in, looked at them all and just went, you guys, what the hell? There's always one of those challenges, like where everyone goes, what the hell?
Yeah.
So
and when everybody's uniformly done just a crappy job on it, something's not working right here. What happened here?
Something's lost in this translation.
We'll just blame
that.
Boy, it's warm. Why is that bake failing? It's warm. It's really warm.
Were there any?
There were so many things that Bruno and Rochelle said too that we always remember. But my favorite was just, as you say, with things melting and kind of thing. I can't remember even what the bake was, but he came out with that beautiful voice. He said, "This is very, very gooey, but in a good way." And where everybody in town here says that now, it's like just part of the lexicon. We all it's very gooey, but in a good way.
Need it on t-shirts.
Yeah, that would be fine.
So in between, filming, were there any pastimes that you guys got up to? I mean, I presume James's was beer.
It was, we were usually pretty exhausted, right? Because they were long days. But it was great because the hotel we were at had a barbecue pit. And Julian's like a hotshot, he's mountain man that goes out and, cooks things on rocks and stuff. But he had this great barbecue. And we would go out to whatever food stores and beverage stores and load up and come back. And we'd basically have a party every night where Julian would barbecue up all the food. We'd have music, we'd dance and just wind down. And there was a pool and we all jumped in our clothes one time. Well, not all of us.
And then the Tragically Hip would appear in the corner and start playing for no apparent reason.
Oh yeah,
then it was just all Canada. Like from that point on, it was all Canada. That's just perfect.
Now I want to see.
Yeah,
I want to see like a Bake Off spin-off with Julian, Liam, and Chris in kind of like
the outdoors.
The outdoors.
You bet. Oh yeah, Liam's. When Liam came along, I thought, wouldn't he have been a hoot to have him with our group too? But
especially seeing the photos of him hiking an entire large turkey into the middle of the wilderness to cook. That's still the image. If you haven't seen it, by the way, it's out there. The image of Julian of Liam with an entire turkey strapped to his back, marching into the wild.
Revelstoke does that to you. I actually grew up not far from Revelstoke, so
you see Liam and you're like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh yeah, sure.
There's a logic to that.
But it was delicious.
Oh gosh.
So the question to ask is sort of post the show, apart from watching yourself over and over again. What have you been up to? I mean,
I've been riding my new e-bike, of course. Whee! Everywhere. Jude's a maniac on the road. Watch out. And that's been fun. We're not traveling much as we usually do, of course. Like we do a lot of traveling, but right now, not so much.
No.
Nah. So, you know,
COVID and tourism.
there's not a weed. Let me tell you that garden out there has not got a single weed in it. We spent a lot of time out there chasing the deer out too. Darn things came in and just cleaned out the front. But they're so nice. It's hard not to appreciate that they're beautiful. I just wish they wouldn't eat all my, my plants.
My dad had the same problem with kangaroos. You know, he had this beautiful veggie patch going. I mean, yes, there was a red-bellied black snake in the compost heap, but still, the kangaroos would come and bloody eat everything. So he gave up.
Really? I guess they would. I guess they would, wouldn't they? They'd be like big rabbits. We had a real rabbit problem here a while ago.
Yes, here's the answer. As we like to explain to people from overseas, they're like a plague.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you
get
out of the cities, they're a plague.
They're also tasty.
Yeah. Well, this was in the city. This was like I was still working up at UVic at the time when it was at its peak, and it was like we have a beer can here that was an old style beer. And one of the things was, try and find they had all these little critters and stuff, and you'd be drinking your beer and go, hey, I think I see 3 crows, and you'd count them off. Well, it also had a whole bunch of rabbits, and we used to laugh and say that it was like going up to UVic was like looking at an old style can, because you would easily count 60 rabbits, no problem, just walk into your building, and it was crazy.
I really hope they're not like escapees from some experimental lab, just mutating and breeding in the streets.
Yeah, well, they're all gone now, so most of them are gone. They went to Texas, evidently. So.
They're on a farm now. They're on a farm.
They're on to Peter Rabbit's haven.
That's right.
Very watershed down of you. Anyway. Can't believe it.
Now, hey you two. Now, I have to say that I am a huge, huge fan of Saskatoon berries. And I got to say to you, they are real.
We were about to go there, Jude, so let's have this. So, are you in the pocket of Big Sasky?
I don't know what you mean.
Exactly. So genuinely, can you explain to the Australian audience who doesn't get to experience them, what exactly a Saskatoon berry tastes like, is similar to?
A Saskatoon berry, I thought of this analogy. I thought blueberries and kangaroos, Saskatoon berries and wallabies. Like they get better PR, right? The kangaroos, everybody knows kangaroos, yeah. Everybody knows blueberries, yeah. But you don't hear as much about wallabies, at least here we don't. And Saskatoon berries, who's heard of those kind of thing? But they're like a meatier blueberry, and so they don't we juice everywhere kind of thing. Yeah. But they're really good with a bit of almond and cinnamon. Oh, they're so good.
Ooh. And it's like berry picking season now in Canada, is that right?
It just finished, actually, our at least the Saskatoon berry season. Yeah, it just finished, and oh my, they were great this year. Just filling up the buckets. It's great because and they're easy to pick. Like I grew up in a fruit and apples kind of area, and I hated picking cherries. I hated picking strawberries. You're back, blah blah. Wine. Poor me. Saskatoon berries are so easy to pick. The bushes are nice and tall. You go along, there's a whole bunch, like a bunch of grapes. You just tickle them off into your bucket. Bob's your uncle.
Oh, that's awesome.
They put together. I believe the other day you had Saskatoon berries with James. So, they bring people together.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That was so funny when he showed up and I said, hey, guess who I'm going to talk to? He said, oh, yeah, I've talked to him. It's so nice.
James, when we do eventually talk to James this series, and I didn't so much ask James, just go, so you're back on again, aren't you? James will be one of our most prominent guests we've ever had now. He'll be his third run. His third go on.
Need him back there.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
We need to do a deeper dive into his bench. That's what I have to ask you. Apart from James, was there anyone else that was just like a train wreck around their bench?
A train wreck. I thought you were going to say who I really liked. I was going to say, oh, train wreck. Well, I must. I have to plead guilty to the next week after his chocolate debacle, which was received with very good. They were all very nice about it, but it was. I mean, he had chocolate, as I'm sure he told you. chocolate inside his knife block. I don't know how he got it in there, but it took a long time to clean his bench, and everyone was very nice, but it was like, oh. So we were kind of a little worried about making a mess. Well, I made a fruit pie. I was supposed to use mangoes, but everybody was using mangoes. So I said, okay, I'll change. I'll do papaya. What an idiot, right? I'd never worked with papayas before. And they got me all these really ripe papayas. And I'm trying to cut little wedges out of them, and they're just turning to mush in my hands. And of course, the panic and the adrenaline and everything's going. Well, I ended up with a sink full of papaya mush, just mush. And because it's so sticky, everything was sticky all around me. It wasn't as dramatic to look at as James, I must admit. But I also I bowed my head and begged forgiveness of the cleanup crew because it was stinking.
I mean, I've always maintained, and I've told James this. I've always maintained that it felt like they were bringing in, with his science background, they were going to bring in the hazmat team and just hose him down, and just hose everything. And it was the moment that Dan goes over there in all white, and like James is there in white. He's like, I chose to wear white today. Why? So,
that was brilliant. I still wanted James to just sort of put his hands up and chase Dan. That would have been so fun.
I'm still disappointed that he didn't. So, but again, I think the secret to your series sort of being received so well, and again, we've seen already with its run in Australia that it's going well again, is just that, as you said before, that idea of everyone is so nice and so lovely and so talented. And you put all of that together with just this really wonderful environment, and those hosts in Dan and Julia, and also again Bruno and Rochelle in their role in terms of encouraging you, judging but encouraging.
Yeah.
And it's just absolute most, and especially for, and this is something that a few people on Twitter have talked about with us, especially with COVID at the moment. It's just such a lovely escape from everything else going on.
Mm. It really is. It's so positive. Well, I figure the sign of it being so positive is that it's been 3, almost 4 years now, I guess. And we're still WhatsApping pretty much every day in the morning. My routine in the morning is I get up, get coffee. I check my iPhone and see, oh yeah, I see Vandana says that she's just been doing something with me, and that's nice. And blah, blah. We're still up on there all the time. Yeah. And I mean, it was an intense boot camp. In fact, that's what we told people when they wondered why all these strange people were barbecuing all the time. Said, "Oh, it's a baking boot camp. That's it." But we really bonded during that time, and I'm so happy that I was lucky enough to have that experience.
So, with successive seasons and stuff, have you been? I mean, I presume you've watched and you've been able to get to know some of the newer bakers. Yeah. Who has impressed you, or what have you found funny? I'm really shit with the interviewing questions. I just want to hear you talk.
So basically what I'm going to expand it out even further, because we've talked before about this larger bake-off community.
Yeah.
And we've seen this idea of like all the Australian bakers and Canadian bakers and everyone sort of getting together. Have there been people that you've now found through this that you've sort of, from other series anywhere, that you've just sort of gone, oh, they're really...
Yes. Yes. Well, like on Instagram, I'm following all kinds of the British bakers and stuff, and some of them are following, like Val. I just chatted back and forth with Val. Well, I told Val, too, that one of the best compliments next to yours that I had ever got was that someone called me the Canadian Val. Yep. And I said, wow, that is pretty nice. But I don't know if you remember Jane Beadle.
Yes.
I follow her too. She said, "I'll catch you big." Well, she was wonderful because when we started up when we first were on there and doing our thing, she sent us all notes that said, "Welcome to the family."
Aww.
Now, isn't that nice? I mean, it's to the baking family, and I just thought, wow, that's first of all, wow, somebody from the British show, But it was just such a lovely sentiment.
It's such a beautiful.
Sorry.
It's such
getting all choked up.
Oh,
it's understandable. It's a very loving and caring community of bakers as well. It's just seeing the way that everyone. One of the joys that we've taken from this is seeing, especially when we see the Australians and Canadians and all that sort of interacting with each other, and just that positivity and that combined positivity and the sort of the sharing and the openness. It's been an absolute joy. a genuine joy to sort of watch these people connect, everyone connect through baking.
Well, I've been lucky because Victoria is a real hotbed of baking enthusiasts. And I think I've been recognized more than almost any of the other bakers, and they're in bigger cities usually and stuff, right? But I'm recognized still, even now, well, when it went on Netflix, I got to see a bunch more. But anyways, I'm constantly being, hi, are you Jude? I say, well, yes, I am. And 11-year-old boys with their families are always very enthusiastic. I don't know why, but that's a big thing. And the first question they always ask, well, they ask, were you nervous? Did you have fun? And then they say, well, is it really that nice? And I'm always feel like a little bit of an ambassador to say, yes, it was. In my series, I can vouch for the fact that we were all genuinely helping each other. We were genuinely laughing. It wasn't like somebody came to us and said, okay, now we want you to laugh while you're mixing your dough, and it was none of that. It was genuine enjoyment, and very positive, especially in these times right now. You need all of that.
Absolutely. Just that, unity and caring and support. And just, there's a lot of serious issues going on, and not to detract from them. Like underlying it is this need for connection and a need for respect and a need for just a genuine love of what each individual person has to offer in this world.
And what you just said there too about respect, that was a huge thing, because in all honesty, I was a great personality, but I was probably the least talented baker there. And that's not false modesty. That's just genuinely I was. But, I was never given a hard time by anybody. If I didn't know what, I didn't know what something was. Nobody ever gave me a hard time, because everybody respected each other for being where they were at. And they knew that what their jobs were. And it was just so positive. I love being able to say that to people and know that it's true.
Yeah, and to have, like you said, like 11-year-old boys coming up and recognizing you and having that respect and that, it's beautiful, because it's showing diverse, role models and just, it busts through so much. That's what I love about Bake Off. It just busts through so many stereotypes and, things that could be, like when you watch a lot of the other competitive cooking shows, they try and niche people. And it's like, you don't need to be niche.
Yeah.
They want to niche people at the start and then follow that up by homogenizing them at the end. Yeah. And what I love about Bake Off is that it's all the way through. You are expected to just be you.
Yeah.
And not for a niche, and then not for someone but at the end of the competition, you must all be the same. If you've got strengths, if you've got something that you bring, your heritage, your background, your tradition, your loves, your passions, we want to see that. Your gnomes, we want to see that. Like, and it's what I love about the show, is that they don't try to change you into something else. They let you be you, and just.
Well, no, that's what the show is about. It's supposed to be about all these different characters. I mean, it's actually quite a brilliant franchise. Because if you pick the right people, your show's there for you. It just happens. All you have to do is record it and thread it together for the best story. But I mean, the actual drama is and emotion and ups and downs and smiles and frowns is all there for you, because you've picked the right people and let them be themselves. So that's why it's so genuine, I think.
Yes. So during ISO, that's as we call it in Australia. I don't know if you call it that.
The isolation.
The isolation and COVID times. Have you been baking, or have you gone, no, I'm not going to do that. I've done that on telly. Now I'm going to, I don't know.
Forage.
Like I said.
Oh, yeah. We ate a lot of porridge. No, well, I do still bake. I mean, it's in the blood now, kind of. And it's funny because my kitchen, the way it's set up, it's almost like you could have a camera on the other side. So sometimes I'm baking away and I'm talking as though I'm talking to a camera. Well, I guess now let's present this, which
just set it up. We will watch.
Oh, why, thank you. Yes. Well, and now I'll throw it to Dan, right? But,
you should do a little claymation Dan.
Oh, wouldn't that be fun? Oh, that would be such a hoot. I actually, small trivia note, speaking of claymation Dans, 100 years ago, my first job when I did the claymation that I said, I actually the first versions of SCTV were being done at our station. SCTV was Second City, which Eugene Levy was one of the cast, right?
Oh,
and they got
Second City, by the way.
Yeah.
They got me to make some little plasticine models of his character Earl Camembert for one of the skits.
Oh my God.
So it was, yeah, I know, it was pretty funny. It was like, it's a small world.
I'm having a real life comedy nerd moment here because I've got the SCTV stuff. They did a DVD set, and I've got it.
Well, it's very politically incorrect now, I guess. But Mr. Hands,
yes,
on second, right? Only this is little, and Floyd is Joe Flaherty is bashing him with the hammer, and I had to make like about 4 of the little characters because they had different takes, and so he'd mash them down, and I'd run in, take them out, and put them back in again. Mr. Levy thought that was pretty funny.
That's amazing. That's brilliant. Yeah. It's a small world.
Small world.
We made a small version of Eugene getting clobbered with a hammer.
Yeah.
And Dan is respectfully stealing your food.
Yes.
Yeah. Put that chocolate bicycle back. Stop eating that chocolate bicycle.
Did you see what I did to your father? Did you see what I did to your father? I've crushed him with a hammer. Lest my hammer finds your head. Well, this has been an absolute delight, Jude, and we cannot thank you enough for having this chat. It's been absolutely brilliant.
Well, it's been a treat for me too, just because listening to your podcast, I mean, went on the first series and then just going along, it's been, I feel like I've had a chance to really get to know you guys a bit better now. So thanks very much for this chance.
Not a problem. It's genuinely our pleasure.
Is there anything you want to plug or
promote
as we Australia? Yes.
Beyond Saskatoon berries, you mean?
You can promote those.
Actually, yes. I guess I don't know if this makes sense or not, but I just started watching the Junior Bake Off, the British Junior Bake Off.
Yep.
And if I didn't think anything could be lovelier and nicer and fairer than our show, but Junior Bake Off is. I just love the way Prue and Liam judge the kids, because when I heard that they were doing a kids one, I thought, oh no, don't be, it's going to be mean to the kids, or kids are kids, right? But
which is why it's Liam and not Paul.
Yeah, right.
Well, Hollywood gives them the Hollywood death. Hollywood gives them a Hollywood death stare and just ruins their life. He does that to adults. So.
They'd be crying all the time,
Either that or their children. So the other thing might be he might give them the Hollywood death stare, and they look at him and go, "What's your problem?"
Yeah. Well, essentially that's what Liam did, right? Because he was only 19 when he was on the show, and Paul would try to pull off his big tough Paul guy thing, and Liam was like, "What do you mean you don't know about dipping sauce for pizza?" I mean, and turned it back on him.
Yeah.
So anyways, if anybody out there loves watching our show and the Australian version stuff, try watching the Junior Bake Off, because it's just so fun.
There you go. So there's a recommendation. Thank you again, Jude, for doing this. It's been absolutely fantastic. Until next time, I'm still Chris.
And I'm still Kristie.
And we'll catch you all later.
Whimsy.